Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
If John was beaten up and attacked in that house, who did it?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. And it's not for us to know. Somebody other than Karen is responsible for that, for the killing of John.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay, how is everybody? Happy New Year. It's the first true crime report from this channel of 2026. Welcome, everybody. I hope you're having a fantastic day and New Year. Hello, Miss You Merch. Hello, Riverdale Pilates. Haven't seen you in a long time. Hello, the Pabs. Hello at Case 10. Oh, Case 10. Is that really you, Case 10? Is that really you from Twitter? Or is that someone else with a Case 10? You never know. Hello from Australia. Hello, Rhonda. All right. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Karen Reed's Nightmare Before Christmas 2021 and how things were at a breaking point with Karen Reed and John O'Keefe's relationship way before Aruba, certainly at Christmas, if you want to call it way before or right before. The relationship was at a breaking point. Karen Reed spent Christmas at home alone, Christmas 2021. And this all started because Karen Reed made a big steak dinner for the O'Keefe family after slyly disinviting John O'Keefe's, one of his oldest friends, Brendan Kane, and his wife and his daughter. She disinvited them and insisted it would be family only. And she had made a big steak dinner for everybody. And Peggy O'Keefe had brought appetizers, and many people filled up on those appetizers and ignored Karen Reed's steak dinner. And that peeved her off. That was the beginning of a very big fight between Karen Reed and John O'Keefe that Christmas. Hopefully I can have someone on to talk a little bit more about that. But we didn't hear, neither in trial 1 nor trial 2, anything about Karen Reed spending Christmas alone. But we did hear about the domestic violence situation between the relationship that Karen Reed, the DV abuse that Karen Reed inflicted on John O'Keefe, and thus, his niece and nephew, through their really powerful testimony. And it all got undercut by testimony like you're going to hear today. And I'm going to go over some of Paul O'Keefe's testimony, not all of it in the first trial, but just some of it, to highlight the way that he talks about Karen Reed and her relationship with John O'Keefe's niece and nephew, who he was raising after the death of his sister and brother-in-law. And let's get into it. So does that make sense to everybody? So she used COVID as, thank you, Harpo. She used COVID as an excuse for Brendan, right? And John O'Keefe made the call and said, hey, according to Brendan Kane, and you can go back and listen to my interview with him, said, we got a little problem. There's some concerns about COVID, and he put those COVID concerns on Paul O'Keefe's wife, Erin O'Keefe, but Erin could not have cared less about COVID concerns. It was Karen Reed who wanted to isolate John O'Keefe from one of his oldest friends and his family from their Christmas Eve tradition that they shared together. And she wanted to be, of course, she seemed to take over John O'Keefe's own Christmas Eve tradition, and wanted to be belle of the ball and play hostess and take the host position away from him, and insist that it would only be family, and she was going to be cooking. And so she cooked this French steak dinner, and it did not get eaten by all, and that teeved her off. So, yeah. But let's listen to Paul O'Keefe and the way that he talks about Karen Reed and their relationship. Hold on one second. And let me just share my screen so we can watch it together. So I'm not going to be playing all of this. We're going to skip around a bit. But this is from the first trial with Adam Lally. Again, it's not the greatest sound when it comes to Adam Lally.
Wrong.
Yeah, she had 2 sons.
Now, you mentioned 2, so other than Amy, who was the other one?
Her 2 sons' names are Gabriel and Christian.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In reference to, you mentioned 2 women that your brother had dated for a long-term period, correct?
Yes, correct.
And one of them was the woman Amy that you were just speaking about, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And who was the second one?
Karen Reed.
And is Karen Reed someone that you had met through the course of your brother dating her?
Yes.
Just to be clear for the record, do you see Miss Reed in the courtroom today? Do you identify as to where she's seated or an article of clothing that she's wearing?
Yep, she is seated right there between Mr. Yannetti and Mr. Jackson.
Just ask the record to reflect identification of the defendant by the witness.
No objection.
Yes.
Now, Mr. O'Keefe, when was it that you first met Karen?
I believe it was Mother's Day, so maybe May of 2020.
Now, prior to that, were you aware of any other time when Miss Reed and your brother Johnny had dated in the past?
They dated very briefly in 2004.
So what I've heard about this is I've heard that this was exaggerated. It was more like a hookup or a couple of hookups. I think brief relationship. And Paul O'Keefe remembers meeting Karen Reed on Mother's Day. So that's May of 2020. And his sister remembers it differently. She remembers it as Father's Day. I mean, his wife, excuse me. I'm sorry, his wife, Erin O'Keefe. A little harder to talk and think at the same time sometimes.
And had you had occasion to meet her during that brief period where they dated in 2004?
I did not meet her back then, no.
And so the first time you met her would have been sometime in the spring of 2020, correct?
Correct.
And what was your understanding as far as when they had reconnected or gotten back together in reference to when you met her?
They reconnected. I believe my brother reached out to her in March of 2020, right at the beginning of COVID.
Well, he reached out to everyone he'd ever been with, sounds like, and wrote, "What's up, stranger?" Karen Reed later rewrote this to, "Hey, blast from the past." But he sent it to many women. So it sounds like COVID really took out his social life, his regular social life. And he was, I mean, it sounds fairly fairly desperate to send a whole bunch of women the same Facebook message. He says it's a text message. It was Facebook.
I think he reached out to her via Facebook Messenger, and then
Oh, there it goes. I think he said it right. I thought he said text at one point.
text.
And they resumed some kind of relationship.
There we go. Facebook Messenger. He gets it right. He gets it right. Then he says text. It's a little confusing.
And you had occasion to meet or see Karen Reed over the course of hanging out with your brother at various occasions, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Now, about how often would you see Miss Reed? Would it be the same, more or less than when you saw your brother?
Almost the same, maybe a little less. If my brother was just him and I or his friends, but for the most part, he was with Karen.
And as far as your understanding, what was sort of the living arrangements with regard to Miss Reed and your brother?
She has her own home in Mansfield, Massachusetts. She would stay at my brother's house in Canton, I would say 3, maybe 4 nights a week.
And that would be at your brother's house with both he and your niece and nephew?
Correct.
Now, with regard to, you mentioned that they reconnected sometime around the COVID-19 pandemic, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And with regard to your brother and the defendant, Ms. Reed, and the children, what was sort of going on as far as school and work with regard to the pandemic, with regard to each of them?
So that was a period of time when schools were closed and kids had to do remote learning. So Kaylee and Patrick were both at home, remote learning, and my brother, didn't have a job where he can work remote, so he had to go into the office. And most of the time, Karen would be at home with the kids during the day while she worked remotely.
So Karen Reed was spending more. The kids really, from that sound, if he's correct, Karen Reed spent a lot of time with those kids. And let's remember some of their testimony. That Karen Reed, according to Patrick, John O'Keefe's nephew, gave him or more than once gave him would turn cold, give him the silent treatment. And Kaylee testified that there was a coldness sometimes, other times a little bit more friendly. Sounded like my impression from the notes. Now, because they were minors, we didn't see their testimony. There was a bootleg copy of it released against court orders, but that has since disappeared. But Kaylee talked about, what it sounded like is that they were walking on eggshells. But more importantly, Kaylee talks about, in her testimony, that John O'Keefe had tried to kick Karen Reed out of the house a week before, days before she reversed into him with her foot 74.5% on the gas pedal, reversing into John O'Keefe at speeds of up to 24 miles an hour in reverse and leaving him to die in a blizzard. After she told her father, she told her father she felt she struck something. So that's not an accident. You feel you struck something, you get out and see what it is. Especially if you know that in the realm of possibilities, you could have hit your boyfriend of 2 years. Instead, it sounds like, everything about that evidence. And in closing argument, Hank Brennan talked about how anger could be inferred. Not just anger, but a deliberate action. So those are deliberate actions. foot 74.5% down on the gas pedal. Now, anonymous lawyer and his or her nonsense would like you to believe that Karen Reed just did a 3-point turn very angrily at speeds never seen before and by anybody to reverse at speeds up to 24 miles an hour. Reversing, every time I'm, in a car and reversing, I think about this case. And rarely do you ever touch the gas pedal in reverse. And if you do, if you're on an incline or not, even if you're flat, you're barely touching the gas in reverse. I mean, speeds of maybe 5 miles an hour max. Because, it's such a dangerous maneuver. I mean, the speeds of 24 miles an hour, I can't even imagine. When you understand that evidence, and why I always mention it, is because it shows a deliberate action. She was trying to do something, and I don't think it's just that she's frustrated because she's lost. She doesn't know her way home. I mean, there's a zillion apps, and Karen Reed is very up to date with technology if you need to find your way home.
Now, you mentioned earlier that your brother had a legal guardianship role with regard to the children, correct?
Correct, yes.
What, if any, legal status or role did the defendant have with regard to the children?
She didn't have any.
Now,
I don't know if case 10 is still here, but case 10, and I go way back to when I was talking about Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey and that innocence fraud campaign. I mean, it's amazing how much innocence fraud is a part of the culture and how little anybody wants to talk about it. I mean, making a murder anybody? I mean, we fought with those. I mean, if you think Karen Reed supporters are bad, wait till you meet Brendan Dassey and Stephen Avery supporters. Oh, my law. Some of the rudest, nastiest people you'll ever come across. I mean, in general, anybody supporting a convicted killer or killers is going to be sus.
With regard to your brother and the defendant's relationship, what, if any, conversations did you have with your brother in regard to status of their relationship or any issues in their relationship?
He didn't say too much. If they were arguing, he might, give reference that they were arguing, didn't really tell me what they were arguing about, but mostly kept that stuff to himself.
What, if anything, did he mention to you as far as reasons for an argument or sort of points of contention?
He didn't like, if she would spend a lot of money on the kids for gifts or, I know there was some arguments over, what she fed them, whether it's, Dunkin' Donuts or whatnot, but it was things along those lines.
What if any occasions, as far as they're arguing or anything like that, did you observe personally yourself?
Yeah, I witnessed, so they had rented a house down in Cape Cod. Say that was summer of 2021. I brought my two daughters down for a couple nights, and I witnessed, one intense fight between the two of them.
Okay, so Paul O'Keefe, Karen Reed, just knowing Paul O'Keefe for months, could be 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, around that period, depending on who you believe when they first met. Paul O'Keefe had an accident where he was under the influence, and Karen Reed paid for Jack Diamond, which was the first person she called or contacted, is a better word for it, contacted. or first lawyer, I'm sorry, this is a better way to put it, first lawyer that we know that she contacted, Jack Diamond, to represent her in this case. And so she paid for his legal representation, whatever if he owed I'm not sure if he owed the state anything, but she covered it. And so now Paul O'Keefe is giving his testimony, having that shame and also being permanently indebted to Karen Reed. And that's something that we saw in Aruba when she falsely, and just to get, I think, to just get John O'Keefe on the back foot, accused him of kissing Marietta Sullivan, Laura Sullivan's sister, and then offered to pay for Marietta Sullivan's room. And Laura Sullivan told Karen Reed, "Oh no, it's okay. An apology will do." Kind of unclear whether they ever got that apology. We know Karen Reed's not big on apologies, but all of this colored Paul O'Keefe's testimony. He's indebted to her. He's worried. How many questions are going to be on the cross-examination about my accident and what Karen Reed did for me, and also the idea that they had this strategy that they'd take the rug out from under the defense for the conspiracy, pin it on the girl defense, as Alan Jackson calls it, fraudster lawyer Alan Jackson, by saying that they all liked Karen Reed. All that did was aid Karen Reed's defense and make it more implausible in the jury's mind that this lovely person that everyone loved and that was so great with the children, and also contradicted the children's testimony, pulled the rug from under their testimony, contradicted their testimony, and their really powerful testimony. Karen Reed was shouting at John O'Keefe in front of them about in Aruba, in their hotel room, that accusing him of kissing Marietta Sullivan. That's not good parenting. It's not appropriate in front of the children. And I bet he could say a lot more about this argument that he saw at Cape Cod, but he's not going to. He said it was a really bad argument, but we're not going to hear any details. I mean, this would have been a really good time to expose Karen Reed's real personality.
And as far as the fight, as you're characterizing that, was that anything physical or just for?
No, it was a verbal argument.
And what, if anything, was that verbal argument about?
It's hard to recall. I mean, I guess like typical couples fighting. There was alcohol had been involved. I recall her complaining that he wasn't nice to her, or something to that effect, and I was kind of the referee in that entire situation.
Now, when you make reference to alcohol involved, is that one or both, or?
Both.
Both your brother and the defendant?
Correct.
Well, they were both drinking, but we know that Karen Reed, alcohol doesn't really touch the sides with her. I mean, were they trying to paint a picture that she's a great person until she drinks, and then she's irrational and like a different person? Is that what they thought the jury was going to buy? Because then you see the footage of them in the bar, and Karen Reed doesn't look like she's turning people off left and right, and nobody's testifying to that. People are testifying, that according to Karina Kalakithis, that she didn't seem that drunk. Or she didn't seem drunk.
Now, if I could turn your attention to New Year's, and specifically New Year's Eve going from 2021 into 2022. You recall that time?
I do.
And do you recall where you and your family were for that sort of New Year celebration?
Yeah, so I was with my wife and her family. We went to Aruba the day after Christmas in celebration of my wife's mother's 70th birthday.
So during that New Year's Eve, you were in Aruba for your wife's mother's 70th birthday, correct?
Correct.
And was your brother, Johnny, was he also in Aruba around that same time frame?
Yes.
And your resort and your brother's resorts, where were they in relation to each other?
They were pretty much on opposite sides of the island.
And at any point in time when you were in Aruba, did you see your brother at any point?
Unfortunately, we did not.
Now, you mentioned that you were there with your wife and your children, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And do you know who your brother was in Aruba with around that same time?
He was with Karen Reed and brought the kids, so Kaylee and Patrick were with him. They were also with a large group, many other couples and families.
Do you know who was sort of the primary organizer of that group that your brother was with?
Yes, a friend of ours, Laura Sullivan.
And how did you know Laura Sullivan?
I knew Laura through my brother. She had dated my brother's partner and one of his best friends, Pat Rogers.
And did Miss Sullivan and Mr. Rogers have a child together?
Yes, and a boy.
And at some point, did Mr. Rogers pass away?
Yes.
What was sort of the relationship between your brother and Miss Sullivan in relation to Mr. Rogers' child?
Johnny was, so she has a son, Benjamin, who Johnny is godfather to.
And you can see when Karen Reed pleads not guilty in June, you can see Laura Sullivan in the gallery crying. And through her testimony, you can see what an important person John O'Keefe was to Laura Sullivan. You just can't, I mean, she just couldn't, so effective, her testimony. Both the Sullivan sisters testified so well in this trial. And it's a shame that they weren't brought back for the second trial. It's so effective, I thought.
And sort of towards the end of your stay in Aruba, with regard to the pandemic, what, if anything, happened to you or any other member of the family?
So my older daughter tested positive for COVID. So her and I kind of got left behind, stayed for an extra 3-4 days, I believe.
So after you returned from Aruba, at some point, were you and your brother trying to make plans to connect or to hang out or see each other at some point in January of 2022?
Yes, we were actually planning on getting together on January 29th.
And do you recall what day of the week that was?
That was a Saturday.
And why was it Saturday? Why were you sort of targeting Saturday as a new point?
A weekend, no work. Kids didn't really have much on the schedule.
By that you mean your kids as well as
Correct.
your nephew?
Yes.
I mean, Karen Reed, what a nerve Karen Reed had to say that we always had fun together. I was looking forward to spending the weekend at John's because we, the kids and I always had fun together. And meanwhile, the day John O'Keefe's last day on Earth, she's texting him that the kids make things toxic. The four of them are toxic together. It's the children that are ruining their relationship. I mean, really triangulating and weaponizing the kids against John O'Keefe. I think especially Kaylee. I think that if they were fighting about anything that night, my guess is that they were either breaking up, and that Karen Reed says they were fighting that night. So I have no reason to disbelieve her on that. Either Kaylee, the plumber, Richie the plumber, because Michael Camerano told Sergeant DeChico that he was annoyed that Karen Reed hadn't asked him to help her with her hot water issue, her rusted pipe issue that she instead rang Richie the plumber, and she was waiting for him in the evening hours of a Friday night, and that he had come and that he puts the toilet seats on crooked, and that he'd come and he will be back tomorrow, mañana, in the blizzard. He's going to come, the blizzard, to fix her hot water. We're not sure if Karen Reed's hot water was ever fixed, because she went to her parents' house. She said she was on her parents' sofa crying, when in reality, the next day she was out with her private detective, quote unquote, retracing her steps. So there was no time for her to, weep on her parents' sofa like she told the press she did.
And then what, if anything, occurred with reference to those plans as far as them coming to fruition or not?
A big snowstorm hit the area, and we said, maybe it's probably better if we just stay home and off the roads. So
I wonder, they said they were planning on meeting. They tried to meet up. Did John O'Keefe not want to meet up with his brother in Aruba? Here they are on opposite sides of the island in Aruba, and they never met up. Not even just for the kids. And were things had deteriorated so much between him and Karen that he wanted to keep his family away from seeing it? Or was Karen such a handful? Their relationship had gotten so stressful that he didn't want to see his family? Were they planning to meet to watch the Alabama game together? All questions for Paul O'Keefe. I'm going to move forward in a minute.
we kind of canceled getting together the day before.
So initially had a meeting for the 29th, but canceled it the day before on the 28th?
Correct.
So this snowstorm that you were talking about that was coming in, is that something that you and your brother were aware of prior to that day it happened?
Yes.
And something John O'Keefe was telling Karen Reed was going to happen. She's well aware that she has a boyfriend who doesn't wear a coat. She's well aware that a massive nor'easter is coming in. One of the biggest storms the area had seen. And yet when she struck something, she didn't get out to check it out. All right,
And was that something you learned of? Where did you learn about that?
The news.
So sort of all over the news, is that fair to say?
Correct. Yes.
And as far as did either your children or John's children, for lack of a better term, niece and nephew, were there any sort of planned activities for that day that got canceled because of the weather or no?
On that Saturday, the 29th, I think everything was pretty much canceled. I don't know anything specific. We had, my daughters had basketball
sounds like he's talking about something specific.
on Friday night, the night before, but we didn't really have any plans for the children on Saturday.
But he was talking about John's kids, Kaylee and Patrick, his niece and nephew.
Now, turning your attention to that day of the 28th, so the day before that was a Friday, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And you mentioned that your daughters had basketball that evening, is that correct?
Correct.
And
So he coaches basketball. We're going to move forward.
where are you going?
We went back to the waiting area, trying to figure out, can we leave? Do we leave? So yes, we left. My mother drove with me. My father drove with Kerry Roberts. We went from the hospital at Good Samaritan in Brockton back to my brother's house in Canton.
And if I could just take you back for a moment. So as you exit the room where your brother is and you come back out in the hallway, what, if anything, occurred at that point?
Again,
Did anyone just hear, and I don't know, if you're not listening with the headphones, you might have missed it, but did anyone else hear Judge Cannoni's giant sigh? She was so hostile towards Adam Lally. If she thinks the jury's not going to pick up on her sighing in the middle of his direct examination, she's sadly mistaken. She was just another wing of the defense. A former defense attorney herself, a total innocence fraudster, did everything she could to help Karen Reed get off. And then when she was just giving her a slap on the wrist for a DUI, said it would be her pleasure.
We saw Karen Reed.
What I mean by that is that when Karen Reed got acquitted of all the major charges, except the OUI, Judge Canoni said something like, would it be her pleasure to just give Karen Reed the minimum?
Being restrained by hospital employees screaming the same things. Is he alive? Is he alive? Is he alive?
Okay, that's very different. So this, I think, might be some cognitive dissonance with Paul O'Keefe. He's blowing her a kiss. And according to Peggy O'Keefe's testimony, Karen Reed shouted out, "Is he dead? Is he dead?" Which is much more in line with the kind of things that we heard her saying from other witnesses. This is the first time we've heard, "Is he alive?" Mostly she was telling everyone he was dead before he was dead. Anyone knew anything had happened to him even.
At any point, either before or after, respond to any of that screaming that you heard from the defendant?
I actually blew her a kiss.
Now, as far as your relationship with the defendant, Ms. Reed, prior to January 29th, 2022, how would you characterize it?
I thought we had a good relationship. I held her in very high regard. I thought she was a good influence on my niece and nephew. I appreciated all the help that she was providing to my brother with the kids. We'd go out together as, couples a couple times. She became very friendly with my wife, but I'd say overall we had a good relationship.
As far as those positive feelings that you had in relation to the defendant prior to January 29th, 2022, had you expressed those to either the defendant or any member of her family?
Yes. So Christmas Eve of 2021 was the first time I met her parents. My brother hosted Christmas Eve at his house. I met Mr. and Mrs. Reed. I offered to help Mrs. Reed, carry some things in from her car. And as we were walking to the car, I said, I just want to tell you, I think your daughter's great. I think very appreciative of what she's done for the kids and helping my brother.
Now, turning back to that day of January 29th, you go back out to the waiting area, is that correct?
Yes.
And what, if anything, happened? What did you see or speak to when you got out there?
I saw her father, Bill Reed, come into the hospital. He was picking up Karen as we were pretty much exiting the hospital to head back to Canton.
And did you have any conversation with him?
I did not.
Now, you indicated that you drove with your mother back to Meadows Ave where your brother lived, is that correct?
That's correct.
And Ms. Roberts drove with your father back to the same location, is that correct?
That is correct.
And as far as your understanding sort of on the drive back, where were the kids? Where was Kaylee and Patrick at that point?
So Kaylee was picked up by Mike Camerano, who's Kaylee's best friend's father. Patrick was at a sleepover the night before, so he was still with the family at the house where he slept the night before.
Now, you mentioned that the drive from your house from West Bridgewater to Brockton was somewhat difficult, correct?
Very difficult.
How would you characterize the drive from Brockton to your brother's house in Canton?
I mean, at one point I said to my mother, I don't know if we're going to make it back. Visibility was terrible. Couldn't see the roads. We made it back. It was just very, very difficult. Just probably the worst driving conditions I've driven in, as far as weather.
And so then, at some point, you and your vehicle, Miss Robertson, hers, and your parents, you arrived at your brother's house in Canton, correct?
That's correct.
You know about what time of day that was?
It was mid-morning, so maybe between 10 and 11 o'clock in the morning.
And was there anybody present at the house when you arrived there?
No.
And at some point, did other people come over, as far as specifically I'm asking about the children?
Yes, so Kaylee was dropped off shortly after we arrived. And then a little while after that, Patrick was dropped off from his sleepover.
I just want to go back to this particular
That she was
testimony.
providing to my brother with the kids. We'd go out together as, couples a couple times. We'd go out the help that she was providing to my brother with the kids.
He was grateful for all the help he was providing the kids, making their life a living nightmare. I mean, this would be the time to talk about the problems in the home. But the other problem is that if he exposes Karen Reed's psychopathic personality, then the O'Keefes may be criticized for, why did you leave your children with her, your niece and nephew? Why would you have her look after the children if she had such a terrible personality? So they're a little bit stuck in that way. But I believe that John tried to shield the kids as much from Karen Reed's damaging behavior as he could. And I believe that he kept as much of the abuse that he was suffering to himself.
We'd go out together as, couples a couple times. She became very friendly with my wife, but I'd say overall we had a good relationship.
As far as those positive feelings that you had in relation to the defendant prior to January 29th, 2022, had you expressed those to either the defendant or any member of her family?
Yes. So Christmas Eve of 2021 was the first time I met her parents. My brother hosted Christmas Eve at his house.
I don't believe he did host it. I think that was Karen Reed. I think she took over that year.
I met Mr. and Mrs. Reed. I offered to help Mrs. Reed, carry some things in from her car. And as we were walking to the car, I said, I just want to tell you, I think your daughter's great. I think very appreciative of what she's done for the kids and helping my brother.
Now,
the trials of being a people pleaser, and what he did, what she did for him by paying for a lawyer, and Karen Reed knew what she was doing, so she just met him 5 months earlier, according to Paul O'Keefe. And here she is paying for his lawyer. So we heard about her paying for a dinner in Aruba. We're trying to. I can't remember if she actually did pay for that dinner. I know she offered. And then trying to pay for the room for Marietta Sullivan. Money is a source of power and control for Karen Reed. And when Karen Reed calls John O'Keefe frugal, I mean, hardly a compliment, but I think everybody describes John O'Keefe as incredibly generous. She sounds like the frugal one. But she was willing to make these extravagant gestures, huge gifts to Kaylee, expensive sunglasses, etc. Oh, no, that wasn't a gift. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of another gift she gave Kaylee. It was an expensive piece of clothing for Christmas. so that people would be in debt to her. It's a way of using your money to control others. Very indicative of Karen Reed's controlling personality. Because you can see the benefits of it right here.
Oh,
I mean, he's facing the woman who killed his brother, and all he can do is praise her. The better thing to do was to say, I was duped. I was duped because she got me out of legal trouble. I was duped because of her fake public persona. And I blamed her psychopathic personality on alcohol, which people are still doing.
turning back to that day of January 29th, you go back out to the waiting area, is that correct?
Yes.
And what, if anything, happened? What did you see or speak to when you got out there?
I saw her father, Bill Reed, come into the hospital. He was picking up Karen as we were pretty much exiting the hospital to head back to Canton.
And did you have any conversation with him?
I did not.
Now, you indicated that you drove with your mother back to Meadows Ave where your brother lived, is that correct?
That's correct.
And Ms. Roberts drove with your father back to the same location, is that correct?
That is correct.
And as far as
Okay,
your understanding,
I'm going to
sort of
stop
on the
it
drive,
there. I'm going to stop it there. But you get the idea. What I'm saying is the niece's testimony and the nephew's testimony got undercut. The rug got pulled out from under it by testimony like this. It's amazing. I don't remember. I'm sure there is another murder trial like this where the victim's family waxes poetic about the killer, but I can't think of one. Let me know if you can think of one. I mean, so much praise. And the need to be in the Reed's good graces is just what the young people call cringy, no? He would be better off. I mean, in 2 trials, we never heard about Christmas Eve. What really happened there? We heard about the beginning of it, helping the Reeds out with their stuff from the car. Curious what they brought. But apparently Peggy O'Keefe brought a bunch of delicious hors d'oeuvres and everyone filled up on them. Didn't eat Karen Reed's steak. French steak dinner. And she was pissed. And she left the John O'Keefe's home to spend Christmas alone in Mansfield. Because you also have to remember that Karen Reed doesn't get along with her sister. If what I've heard is right, is that they can't be in the same room together. So Karen Reed spending Christmas 2021 alone, not with the man she dated for 2 years at that point, and very soon after, month later, a little bit more than a month later, is reversing into him at speeds of 24 miles an hour with her foot almost flooring the gas pedal, 74.5% down on the gas pedal. I don't know. I'm so curious to hear what your thoughts are about what they fought about. Let me know in the comment section what you think that they fought about and why did we get this curated view? And why did nobody in the O'Keefe family or any of the witnesses think that this might be a strategy that would backfire on them to say that they all loved Karen Reed? They thought that, did they think that the innocence fraud campaign and the people supporting it were going to welcome them with open arms? They said they loved Karen? Did they think the media would be kinder to them? Or did they really think it was going to help them win a court case? But you cannot fight an innocence fraud campaign with a concocted narrative, just like, an innocence fraud is essentially a fraudulent narrative. So you can't fight one fraudulent narrative with another fraudulent narrative. Someone has to be telling the truth, and you can't finesse it like a defense lawyer. I think so. All Adam Lally calling so many witnesses ended up being more effective than Hank Brennan's, who is a defense attorney, his polished, curated, finessed narrative. And I always say it was a mistake to focus solely on the text stream data and to take out the human element of the DV story, which is really the unspoken story of this case. This is where DV relationships end up. This is the end of the road for DV relationships. Someone can't get out of it. This is eventually where some of these lead. The most extreme abuse that you're going to get is the end of your life, is murder in a DV relationship. And this is something we should have learned in the O.J. Simpson case, where he got acquitted of the murder of Ron Goldman and his wife, Nicole Brown Simpson. All that was underplayed in that case too, in favor of DNA evidence that at that point the jury didn't really understand or didn't care, or could have been planted, thought could have been planted. And ditto here. I mean, I've seen Karen Reed supporters claim that the text stream data is manufactured. I mean, they don't need proof of a conspiracy to push a conspiracy, and successfully. And I've seen comments from you guys saying that the jury didn't pay attention or was so stupid or didn't understand the evidence. They understood the evidence. They just wanted to give my view, the Commonwealth the middle finger, give the police the middle finger. They had enough innocence fraudster people who were really receptive to that kind of narrative on the jury, including the jury foreman. So that's what I have for today, guys. Happy New Year again. Hope you guys had fun, whatever you did last night. I will be back tomorrow. Not sure what time, but sometime tomorrow, I hope, with another live stream. Please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, share this episode, leave me a comment. I do get so much out of your comments. I read them all. Support the channel, Venmo, buy me a coffee, or Patreon. Get access to content you won't get anywhere else. Have a great night, everyone. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment. I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, gin, gin, like John, you were my mark. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit. Hit. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard, now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, gin, like John.